Hello and welcome back to an episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me, Laura Fu. She's the GTM architect at DevRev, and also she's the author of Designing for Excellence book. As you can guess, we're gonna talk about GTM, go to market. And in the age of AI, a lot of things are changing. So without further ado, Laura, this I think I do with all my guests. I keep it to themselves to introduce themselves. So tell us a little more about you, your background, your journey, and then we can start the discussion from there. So the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mehmet, for having me on the show. I'm the go-to-market architect at DevRev, and so I am just extremely curious about how we can improve the efficiency of the go-to-market organization and what are things we can deploy to make sure that we're operating at maximum efficiency. I've been leading RevOps teams for a number of years now. And I'm also now the author of Designing for Excellence, Sales Enablement in the AI-native World, which talks about how we can incorporate AI into helping us make that go-to-market engine even more efficient and more fluid. Yeah, that's it.
Great. And thank you again, Laura, for being here with me today. Now, let me start where you finished. Now, I know you've led GTM and enablement across multiple high growth companies before, and things are kind of changing today.
Mhm.
So, what is fundamentally breaking right now in sales organizations, in your opinion, that most leaders still are not understanding, or maybe they are underestimating?
Yeah. Um, I think the first thing is that I would say, generally speaking, it is harder to become a seller today um, because buyers themselves are way more informed and they kind of know what they want. There is a trust recession. I think I heard that term in your last episode.
Yes.
And so it's been difficult, I think, for sellers to gain that trust from the consumers. The consumers are a lot more skeptical. Okay. And then the second thing, just like very relevant right now today, is that we have been thinking that AI is going to come and solve all our problems. And, it's like a button that we press or a switch that we turn on. And that once we deploy that into our go-to-market organization, it will miraculously increase the productivity of the organization. However, one thing that we do get wrong is, we kind of have to just change the way we're doing things, not just deploy it in the same way. And that's why it's not working.
Right. Laura, now in your book, you argue that sales teams are moving at the speed of AI.
Mhm.
Um, so how that looks in practice for, if we're talking in pre-series A or B, probably they don't have yet a CRO, but probably maybe they have someone who's taking care of this. Maybe in like growth stage, they will have a CRO. So how, or so how things are changing actually for CROs or head of sales when they are preparing for their, maybe on Sunday evening, maybe on Monday morning. What is this shift that's happening?
Yeah. So, even though I said sales teams are operating at the speed of AI, I think what I meant was the expectation of them is changing at the speed of AI. But sales teams and humans can only move at the speed of humans, even though we deploy the AI. So I just wanted to clarify that. Because going back to my point, just because we deploy something doesn't mean it automatically like accelerates and moves faster. As a go-to-market leader, I think a couple of things that change is the ability to consume information about everything in an instant and being able to ask those questions right at your fingertips. So, for example, where we used to wait for the forecast call and do deal reviews, we no longer have to do that because um, in the past we used to have everybody on the phone, and we needed the person who was really into the deal to just tell us all of the context about the deal. We don't have to do that anymore. If you have a question about it, all we just have to do is ask the AI, because it has all of the context, it has all of the notes, it has everything that has transpired between the first time we did an outreach to the current status. You can ask all those questions and identify the gaps yourself. So being able to have all that access to the information, I think is amazing. That's one. The second thing is also be able to have access into the levers that are currently working or also not working for you. You can do that without needing a team, an army of RevOps analysts to do all that data analysis for you.
Do you think, Laura, based on what you just mentioned, this is where actually the gap is between AI adoption and AI native execution, where most companies fails?
Ask me that question again.
So based on what you just mentioned now, right?
Okay. Mhm.
And I'm talking about the process, getting on the calls and all these things and having the analyst. Do you think like if I want to summarize, do you think like the gap between AI adoption and AI native execution falls here? Is this where most companies are failing?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody right now has the ability to summarize and they know how to use it in that way. Okay. Where I think most companies are failing in AI adoption is being able to actually deploy it in a way that is fundamentally changing the the process itself of doing sales and being able to tap into the salesperson and the human to be able to execute on that. So let me give you an example of what that
Sure.
might look like. Okay. So for example, um, we all know that it's very important to follow up with a customer after a meeting, right? Okay.
True.
So if we just follow up straight away, that's what we were doing before. We'd send an email and thank you for the conversation. Here are a few summary points. Okay. Using AI to do that and just layering it on would just be saying, AI just summarize it for me. I copy and paste that and I put that in an email, or even the AI can send it for you. That's
True.
just that doesn't even require adoption. That just requires some kind of like orchestration and setup, right? And the AI can do it for you. Okay. Where um, in this process, where I think we could think about an AI native process is in the way that you are suggesting, you as the AI, sorry, the AI is suggesting to the rep, here are some things that you might want to change about your use cases that you suggested based on what we heard. Super highly customized, and it generates also the not just the email summary, but the new decks, the new use cases, a demo flow, all of those things related to how you're going to change the conversation afterwards, and then having presenting that to the rep, but also asking the rep what do you think and asking for their opinion around whether or not this sharpening is working. So I think like when we talk about AI native, it actually needs to make the humans better at their job, not do the human work for them. So in the first example I gave you, where the AI is just summarizing and then sending it off, it's not making the human any better, right? But in the second example, it is actually challenging the human to say, hey, uh, things could be different. Things could be better and different. I want to ask for your opinion. Do you think this makes sense, or should we change it in a different way? So I think that second example is more reflection of what AI native looks like, except that we have been thinking more about just automating tasks versus making humans better.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, mentioning this, we know because you mentioned the reps, and I was one of them back in the days. So, when any new, so this is what used to happen. So, a new use case, maybe a new collaboration with another company. So, whenever something new comes up, we used to have, as you know, the traditional enablement. Yeah, let's train people on the messaging, let them do this and go. Now, you make a strong point that traditional enablement training sessions and onboarding tanks and certification is no longer enough.
Yeah.
Like, where exactly that model break, in
Yeah.
your opinion?
Traditional enablement has actually never been enough. Right? The way that we were thinking about those programs where we deliver it and then we don't follow up on how the reps are actually using it, it has never been enough. And we've actually always been trying to drive towards this model where it's just-in-time enablement, where the reps are notified of something when it becomes relevant to them. So, for example, a new narrative, giving it to them at the moment where the narrative becomes relevant. For example, in this call example that I just gave you, right after the call, maybe that narrative pops up and says, "Hey, did you know we have a new positioning about this? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
You might want to watch this recording. Here are the key points about that." So I'd say that's where traditional enablement was not able to get to the point where the sales teams could actually consume it. We only absorb like 10% of what we hear. And so the best way to do it is when we're in the moment and when we can find it useful, then we'll use it. And the next time we get into that situation, we're going to be able to use it again. So I'd say that's probably the biggest break in sales enablement.
Great. So things are changing, and we're talking about AI native enablement now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does AI change the role of enablement from just, as you mentioned, because before we used to watch videos or maybe someone, practicing a demo or something similar. So how that, becomes something more operational, and on a high level, of course, what does that enablement stack actually looks like in the AI enablement world?
Yeah. So you had two questions there. I think the first question was
Yes.
around what does AI enable us to do in this new sales enablement
Mhm. Right.
world? Um, the key difference that it I think unlocks is that AI really enables enablement now to become a system versus just one function in the organization. And even if we had organizations in the past that were, many of them were working towards enabling the sales organization. Like, for example, we had product marketing doing something, we had, maybe RevOps doing something, we had the sales leaders doing their own enablement. Even if in the past, a lot of them were trying to do the same thing and, help all the reps. Today, AI actually helps us group all of that context together and say, look, let's not do it in silos. I have the context for what the leaders are trying to train this rep on specifically. And so let me grab what product marketing is doing and deliver it to the rep themselves. It can be tailored and it can be part of the system now that it has access to all of the content and is able to consume this data at just an incredible amount of scale. Okay, so I think it solves for the system itself. And then the second is you ask like, what is the tech stack
Right.
that is necessary for go to market enablement? And here we're not talking, I think, about sales. We're not just talking about the enablement tech stack, but we're talking about the sales tech stack and what do go to market teams need. Okay, so it's a complicated question for me because I think that the main thing that you want is context and memory capture. If you
Mhm.
have that capture, you can kind of do anything on top of it. You can deploy cloud in it. You can deploy, all kinds of models and agents on top of it. So I would say the capture of the information and the capture of the information on one side, and then the storage and the recall and the memory of that is really important. So the number one thing would be: do you have a call recorder that summarizes and is uh, has the ability to extract the information for you, right? Whether the call recorder itself has AI native features itself is not as important as is it bringing in the data in the right way that can then be used by the LLM. That's one. The second one is around the CRM. Is your CRM able to get read and write updates from agents, or is it closed box, right? Does the rep still have to go in and click those buttons?
Mhm.
If that's the case, then it's not going to be AI native. Okay, so CRM, like call recording, or sort of note takers type of thing, right? And then the third one
Right.
is the engagement and the outreach. Now, I think that engagement and outreach can actually be built on top of an existing sort of memory and memory context. But is there, if you don't want to build your own and you want to buy something, I would say, is there something that can grab all of the signals, not just from your CRM, but also from intent, from enrichment, from all of those things, and ingest your own salespeople's personas, their preferences, as well as the company narrative on all that, and help you craft those sequencing and messaging. Now, that's a little bit harder to, I think, achieve, but I'd say those three things are probably the most important things for our sales stack today.
I would call that the ultimate goal that we want to reach to,
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you talk, Laura, also about the AI enablement flywheel, and
Mhm.
walk me through the components of that, like, and how do they connect?
Yes. So it is content, programs, analytics are the three pillars of the flywheel, and at the center we've got analytics and basically the orchestration, right? So content is about what is going into delivering this to our customers, and
Hmm.
the the basic problem of content before was that it's always outdated and we're always on the back foot because it's not responding to the market quick enough. Today, in an AI native world, for example, at DevRev, we've changed our messaging 3 or 4 times just in the last 12 months. And if we were going off of a quarterly schedule, for example, where we're giving the reps, hey, here's a new narrative, we would be too late. Okay, so content itself has to be refreshed and updated based on what the market and the customer and the rep needs in the moment itself. So there needs to be a way um, to gather all those things and also generate that content. That's one. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, no, no. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Laura.
Okay. And then the second part is the programs. So programs are around making sure that the way that the content is delivered to the rep is not just single threaded. And it's not just, hey, watch a recording. We kind of talked about this earlier, right? It's not just a recording,
Right.
just in time, but it's also that whatever you're doing, whether you're touching the rep in as a leadership conversation, in a company all hands, in a go-to-market all hands, in a sales enablement weekly meeting, that all of these things are connecting the dots on the content that you're delivering. Okay. And again, AI can help us do that because we have access to all this information and it can actually give us programmatic themes around here are the things that we need to be delivering. Okay. And at what time. So that's the program. And then the third one is analytics and how we measure that and being able to change that really quickly. So today we don't even actually need of course we have lagging indicators and reports that come afterwards, but we don't have to do that at the end of the quarter and say, is the message working? We can measure that straight away on a call. What did the customer say when you said this? When you delivered
Mhm.
this new positioning? When you talked about the new pricing? Were customers confused? Was it the way that you delivered it because you didn't practice? And those analytics being available and useful in the real time. And then the last part is really, how are you deploying it? And a lot of this is just agents in orchestrating, pulling all this data so that the rep doesn't have to do it, so that they don't have to go in, they don't have to update the CRM, right? If the AI should be asking the rep, what do you want to do about this? They should be asking for their opinion rather than the execution.
That's make a lot of sense because I'm part from I'm part of a WhatsApp group of founders, and
Mm.
someone was asking a question about CRM specifically,
Oh,
and they were saying like, okay, what's the most important thing that would show me if the deal is moving forward, right? And they said like it depends on how do you define this, right? Like
correct.
how and based on what you're saying, like you need to have this multiple layers that you just put them, which we call them like the dots that, or the component that you connect as dots between each others. Now if one of them fails, that might break the flywheel, I think, Laura, because and in your opinion, which one is the weakest one? Like, is it the people? Like, because the reps are not getting it, or is it because of the data? You mentioned analytics, or is it because the process itself? And this is why I gave you the example of this WhatsApp group,
Mm.
because if we don't know how to define how things are moving forward, we're gonna be lost. Like whether we have like the best breed LLM and best in breed agentic framework for our RevOps. Do you agree with me? Like, I mean, what's the most important thing here, or what breaks also this flywheel?
Two things break. The first thing that breaks is we didn't have a process in place for how we were going to manage the change in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we didn't say, "Hey, what are the outcomes that we're trying to do, and how are we gonna like actually insert this into the reps?" Most of the time, when we buy technology, and not even AI technology, but most of the time when we buy technology, we don't have a good change management process in place. The
Mm-hmm.
implementation itself is failing. So this has actually nothing to do with AI. It's just more around like change management. Do we have a good change management in place? If we didn't, and we still expected, like we have this amazing AI that is agentic in nature, can do all the execution, but then we just ask it to summarize and then make the rep copy the information and put it into the CRM. If we're asking them to do that, then the adoption is going to fail, right? Because we didn't think about it end to end. So I think that's one where that adoption fails. The second one is where we did not take care of the data, and this is more specific to AI. Like we didn't take care of the data and how we're aggregating that and how we are cleaning it and how we are transforming it for the LLM to use. And when we do that, then the AI starts producing answers, data, information that is wrong. And people have a very low tolerance for trust these days, right?
True,
So as soon as they say, "Oh, it's not working, it doesn't give me the right information," then they'll stop using it.
true.
Yeah.
You just mentioned something about the feedback, right?
Mm.
And now, and this is something really important because I've lived it also at some part of my career. How we can like kind of operationalize, if the word is right, these feedback loop between sales, products, and enablement, because you I've seen like time and time again when we come up with a new messaging, or for example with a new pricing, or maybe we want to change probably the business, not the business model, but I mean the way how actually we want to do business with these customers. I'm talking in the B2B space, right? um so people have hypotheses. I can understand that. So they say, okay, let's say if we add this feature, this how we think customers will react. Or if we go with this pricing model instead of this pricing model, and of course you have seen a lot now, especially SaaS companies going from seed to like
Conceptual.
actual performance based licensing or
Mhm.
outcome based licensing. Sometimes it's the messaging itself. The company is known for X. Now the company will say, hey, you know what? We need to position ourselves actually as the AI enabled X or something like this. But it doesn't work all the time, right? And you just mentioned about the feedback. So how this from operations perspective, especially for people who are in enablement, right? Um, would look like and what's the role of real time data in shaping, all these, whether it's with training the reps or getting this feedback loop and changing if needed with that messaging, pricing, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I think that it depends on the kind of company that you are in and where your product lives. Like, is it are we a name brand company, or are we introducing new things into the marketplace all the time? Like, for example, AI today is still relatively new, so some of these concepts we might actually be educating a lot of the buyers on, and in that case there is a curve for adoption, right? So um, uh, it may be that the message is not landing because the people that we're talking to are not yet there in their maturity. And so I think there is a spectrum first of where customers fall and how your message lands. There are two components actually for feedback loop that I tend to look at. One of them is around, are we in the process of educating? And is the customer, they may not agree, but are they clarifying something? Are we clarifying something for the customer? If we are being able to clarify something and it is not causing confusion, not in the way that it's being delivered. I'm just talking about the messaging itself. If it makes sense, but they just don't agree, okay, then I think we are landing on the education side of it, where we're saying, hey, this is a new thing in the market. You may not agree, but I am being clear on what the position of my company is and the product and the new feature, and I'm being clear. And maybe we need to spend more time establishing the problem first before even talking about the feature itself. That's on one side of it. Sorry, did you have the question?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So then the next side of it was the rep level information, the rep level presentation of the messaging itself. That is
Mm-hmm.
far more qualitative, but there actually are a lot of examples where the messaging might be absolutely clear. The rep is just not able to tell that story, or they're not listening, which is a lot of what happens in the conversation. Okay. So there are two things that I tend to look at. Are we clear? Are we being clear? And is the rep delivering the message as I asked? Now, the second thing is actually easier, because we can look at things like, okay, did they pause? How much did they talk? Like, if the customer said this, did they respond with something totally different? I think that AI can actually do a very good job of in the moment telling the rep, hey, slow down, you didn't address this question, you didn't do this, like, do this now. I think that's one. The first part of it is more difficult, and I think that's something that this is where human agency comes in, right? And this is where we make an assessment, like, is it that the messaging is not landing, or are we not being clear, or is it that the problem itself is not established correctly?
Right. Like it's a very great way of doing this deep analysis on figuring out what's working, what's not. Now I know you talk a lot about metrics that actually matter, right?
Mm.
So, and you highlight behavioral signals as leading indicators of performance. If you want to mention like a couple of them, that you trust the most, what that would be.
Yeah. So this is not AI, specific or related really, but I would say that the activity metrics that matter most to me are the inputs around activity and top of the funnel pipeline creation. And this is something that I've said in sort of all of my go to market interviews, which is basically that, hey, if your rep is excellent at creating pipeline, which also means they're excellent at qualifying, they're excellent at hunting for a no, they're excellent at establishing whether the problem is worth solving, right? If they are really good at that and they're good at finding people, that makes an excellent start to whether or not they're going to be successful. Because nobody likes creating pipeline. Nobody loves helping the rep create pipeline. Everybody loves helping a rep close deals. Okay.
Right.
Now, the second part of that question would be, today, what other kind of metrics would I use? At DevRev, we actually have a internal AI called Computer, and we can track actually how much they're using it and what they use it for. That would be actually my metric also. Like, hey, are you actually leveraging the tools that you have? Are you asking those questions? Which skills are you deploying? Which agents are you asking to do work for you? That would probably be my third thing that I would look at today.
So Laura, that means the traditional dashboards that we are all used to in the old world, I'm gonna call it.
Yeah.
They need to be changed, right? Like so I need, if I'm a CRO or like head of sales in a scale up or startup, I need to be looking to a completely different kind of dashboards in this AI native world. Is that right?
Correct. Um, I actually am of the opinion that dashboards are dead, and we don't need dashboards anymore. Because what do we use dashboards for? We use dashboards to identify trends and like are we on target to getting to our goals, or is something going wrong? Do we need to do something? So we use them to identify trends and get signals for us to do action. Okay. However, if we didn't have that, cross that out, and just have the agent basically scan for those signals and intents and give us, hey, something you might need to worry about. Um, the churn rate is trending down over the last 2 weeks. This customer looks like they are about to churn, and it's going to impact your number by X%. Go look at that. Like if we had agents that did that for us, what would be the point of a dashboard? And any kind of information that you want to ask, you can ask the AI. Now, if you want something, for example, for a board deck, create it on the fly. The agent can actually do that for you, and it can give you the metrics that matter most now. So, for example, if this quarter the most important thing was how many new business meetings that we have, and that is the thing that you want to talk to your board about because that was what you committed to driving, more top of funnel activity, then let's create a dashboard for that. And the agent can just, create it on the fly for you, and you can put it in your board deck. Next quarter, if the priority was something different, we can also do that. So, hopefully we get to that point. I realize it's a way up. It's a ways off, okay? But yeah.
Um, I would call it like it's returning back to sanity, right? And
Yes.
the reason I'm saying this, because if you really think about, and I agree with you about the dashboards, because they are, yeah. So people, they say they are real time. They're not. You just are picking up whatever data your
Was last
people,
year.
yeah, they
Yeah.
have logged the last time. And we know, like, all the push from frontline managers, hey guys, go update the CRM, hygiene in the CRM, and all this. So I think this is going like to an obsolete phase, because now, with all what we just discussed, so far about, getting the real time data and getting, the agent to actually extract what's important and do this. So we don't really need this. Now people might think, oh, maybe they are pushing that we don't need a CRO. I'm not saying this, of course. um because actually, this is why we tell people, like, everyone who works in the sale organization, they should be focusing, to your point, Laura, on how we can generate more pipeline, like, and how we can be in front of as much customers as possible, instead of wasting time in front of dashboards, spreadsheets, that you and me, and I think a lot of people would agree, for years, people, they had to survive this, I call it quote unquote torturing, of just discussing numbers. And we know that it's just, something that, and let me be, very frank here. We know, like, some people make things up in the CRM, and these dashboards are made up of the, made up data that we have put in the CRM. So I think this is a kind of a wake up call for people to go and actually do the things that matter. And this is where, I want to ask you, um so you talked about pipeline, right? So what's the full story here? Like, and how do you think AI can help us, or can help the reps in having this pipeline coverage, um, so they can attain what they have to do?
Yeah. You mentioned something actually earlier in your conversation about it was about the reps not wanting to uh, or spending more time, needing to spend more time in the field instead of, behind a computer discussing numbers and all that. Okay.
Right.
Um, a lot of I think the best deals are won, and I'm talking more about enterprise B2B sales. I'm not talking about like
Sure.
the transactional ones, right? A lot of the best deals are won when the sales rep is spending a lot of time with their leaders, their ecosystem, discussing, hey, what do you think the customer needs right now, and let's execute on that. Let's do something. They spend time actually strategizing on the deal, and less time spent, let's say, talking about the number. um, and I think that this is where AI can really help us. Um, Instead of waiting for, I need to talk to my manager, I need to talk to my sales leader to give me guidance on, what I should be doing. They actually have that coaching right at their fingertips. They can ask the AI to help them. So on one hand, I think the deal strategy can be done with a lot of the AI support, and you can have your AI trained on your leader's behavior, how your deals are won or lost within the system, and all that good information. And I think it's going to be very effective for reps to accelerate those deals. But that also means, I think, that actually they are spending maybe more time conversing with the computer, right? Except that instead of spending time updating fields, they're spending time actually talking about what those points might be, what the new use cases are, what is the angle that we go in to the customer with. That would be one. And then the other thing would be in terms of actually building that pipeline. We
Hmm.
became smarter, I think, in the last 10, 15 years. We became smarter in finding intent signals from customers, um, information about them, enriching context, and all those things. We already did that before the rise of AI. But where AI, I think, makes it um, easier and faster is that now AI can actually scan. I actually have an agent that scans this for me. It's called a scanner. It's called a low hanging fruit scanner. And what it does is that actually goes into all of the publicly available information sources. It finds all the signals based on, even like Reddit threads. Like, what are they talking about? What are the key problems? What job postings are there on LinkedIn that people are hiring for? Have this particular function decrease or increase in the last 3 6 months, right? All of those things, it can now actually consume all of that information without a human having to go to each individual thing, click 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 click, consume all that information, and it can surface it to me um, straight away and give me the right people with all the information that I need, all the phone numbers, email addresses, and here is the talking points for how you're gonna reach out to them. Do you want me to craft an email, or you're good with that? I think just that ability to do that faster and in a more effective way. So you're not cold outreaching. You're not going in blind. And we used to do this. We used to do this quarterly. All the reps had to do a territory tiering, right? They had to spend like 2 days just going through that before their QBR, and they'll say, these are my top accounts. They don't have to do that anymore. They can just do it on a daily basis or weekly basis. They can get a little signal report. Here's five accounts, go. I think that makes them just more effective.
Yeah, it's like working, I would say, smarter, not harder,
Smarter.
right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Now, Nora, let's say we decide to build a revenue organization from scratch today for a completely new company.
Yeah,
AI first.
yeah,
How that organization would look completely different from how we build teams today.
sure. Um, I used to have a team. So my RevOps org had 4 pillars. Okay, so one was reporting and analytics. The other one was uh, operational efficiencies, like deal desk, a business partner, an analyst for that region. The fourth one was around enablement. And then the last one was around systems. Okay. So what I would do is I would combine 1, 2, and 4 into one function. And this function would be a go-to-market engineer. And I hate to overuse this term. Um, but really who we're looking for are really smart people that are technology forward and have the skills to use AI, but also build tools, right? they're not analysts anymore. I don't need a team of analysts ever, because all that's needed is the ability to ask the right questions. These same people would work on making sure that the data that was going in was absolutely great, right? They would set up the systems, the integrations, the MCPs for all of those different systems that we're doing, and combine it in a way that's going to make it useful for the reps. Where I think the role of, for example, enablement still has to exist, or the function enablement has to exist, is more around that coaching element and identifying those big trends and creating the content for it. That requires a little bit more subject matter expertise, I think, around the go to market function. And so I keep that. So I would say, um, out of those four functions, three are combined. So it's really a two function organization. And the scale, I think it depends on how many sellers and how many systems you have, and what your goals are.
Absolutely. Like I have to agree with you on the thing you just mentioned. And it's not my own words. It's like one of my
Mhm.
guests who brought it first. I think, 2 years ago. He's my friend also as well, Rabi. So he said, in the age of AI, the perfect thing is to know how to speak plain any language, like if you're
Right.
dealing with
Yeah.
it in English, to just express yourself in a plain language that is understandable for everyone, so you
Mhm.
exactly to know what you want to do, like what you want to achieve. Now, to your point also as well regarding the coaching part, and I think where this is important because we need. And actually, I recorded an episode yesterday, and then my guest corrected me and he said, Mehmet, you're talking about actually coaching and management. Because I said, in the age of AI, what I discovered, because as you mentioned, we can do anything, right? So we have a lot of plenty of tools. There's no, I think there's nothing that still we didn't try to implement the AI in it. But what I figured out from my own experience, like working with these tools, like agent frameworks or whether like the LLMs, is that we need to have great level of attention to details.
Yes.
And when I describe this, and if we talk here about the GTM, so you need this manager view, coach view, whatever you want to call the title is, that he or she they can go and say, hey, you know what, great work, but you forgot to, for example, check on this and that. They are missing here. So this is where you just try to steer the outcome in a way that is optimal for everyone. So 100% agree with you, Laura, on this. Now, as we are coming close to an end, where people can find the book and where people can get in touch with you, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So here's the book. It's Designing for Excellence: Sales Enable in the AI Native World. It is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, your favorite bookstore. It is available there. You can absolutely just buy the digital version or the hard or the paperback version. And you can also listen to my podcast as well, which is also on Spotify. It is the State of the AI Union.
Great. So I will make sure that the link to the book and the link to your podcast are available in the show notes. Laura, I can't thank you enough for giving me the time. I know, like it's a busy time for you, and you gave me this 1 hour time from your busy schedule. So really, I appreciate that. And glad to have you made it to the show. And this is how I end my episodes. This is for the audience. If you just discovered us by luck, thank you for passing by. Thank you for listening or watching. Just a small favor, just subscribe and share it with as much people as possible, because we're trying to do an impact. We're trying to share knowledge. We're trying to get people to listen to awesome people like Laura today, talking about how GTM and enablement looks in the AI native world. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming and again to listen to the show or watch the show on YouTube, thank you for doing so. Something cannot happen without you, which is having the CTO show in the Apple top 200 podcast charts all this year and last year. Actually, we were having the same in multiple countries. So I keep seeing we're changing countries every week, but always we are somewhere. So this cannot happen by itself. That means people are recommending the show to others, and I really appreciate it. So as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.